Joining me now is the Assistant Democratic Leader, Congressman Jim Clyburn of South Carolina. He's also a national co-chair for the Biden campaign. Congressman, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, Congressman, you see those numbers. Why do you think that concerns are increasing about President Biden's fitness for office?
Well, I think that we all are concerned about the aging process. So much about it is unknown. But we all realize that when we are making choices as to who to vote for, we compare the candidates to each other. As long as we're talking about this in sort of a generic sense, then that's going to be a problem. But I think that when we get down to the nuts and bolts, people will compare the two candidates. They'll look at their programs for the future and make decisions. And I think if that were to occur, I feel pretty good about Joe Biden and his chances of success in the next election.
Congressman, though, how concerned are you that the problem seems to be growing for voters? It's not just that it's a problem, it's an increasing problem for voters. Is the president doing enough to counter the narrative that he's unfit to serve?
Well, you may recall some time ago, I said then I thought that age would be a concern, but that the president should confront it head on and dismiss it head on. And I think he can do that.
Congressman, does he need to do more than just say, watch me?
Well, I think that you want to watch him, but I think people tend to feel that levity is sometimes a pretty good way to deal with it. I remember the way Reagan dealt with it when he was being confronted with that question with his opponent. And I think a similar way of dealing with this would be good for Joe Biden.
I want to read you something that Minnesota Democratic Governor Tim Walz said about the disconnect between the White House and the American public. He says they're having a challenging time connecting the achievements of the Biden administration, whether it's the infrastructure bill or the IRA or the CHIPS Act, connecting it to real lives and real job creation. The president's approval ratings in the low 40s right now, Congressman. Do you agree with that assessment? Is the president failing to sell the American people on the policies that he's passed?
I think Tim Walz is on the money with that. Look, I'm here in South Carolina. I'll be meeting tomorrow with Secretary Granholm to discuss electric buses and automobiles and battery plants, all that are being constructed here, a whole new automobile coming to South Carolina. And the next day I will be with Secretary Buttigieg. He just announced today a $29 million program for North Charleston. These are things that this president's doing because this state needs it. And he's vowed to be a president of all the people. And he's demonstrating that time and time again. And I just believe we do have to do a better job of getting that message out to people so they'll know exactly what this president is doing. I don't think we're doing a good enough job of that. I think Tim Walz is absolutely correct.
Let me ask you about this head-to-head matchup between President Biden and former President Trump. President Biden is up 4 points. And as I've been saying, I have had Democrats come up to me saying that Trump is going to be the best challenger for him in a general election. Do you worry that some Democrats are repeating the mistakes of 2016 and underestimating Trump?
Yes, I am concerned about that. I don't worry about it a whole lot, but I am really concerned that we have to be careful with this. You know, I'm a history guy, and I know the history of these kinds of things. I remember us coming up short on Ronald Reagan when we thought that nobody would elect a movie star to be president of the United States. And look what that got us. So we have to be very, very careful about this. So many people the last time out thought that Trump had no way of winning the nomination, and he did. And he went on to win the presidency as well. So yes, I'm concerned about that.
Do you think that it's Democrats underestimating former President Trump? Or are you concerned that the president himself is underestimating Mr. Trump? Tim Ryan is warning that the White House may be underestimating the threat.
Well, I don't think the president is. I talk to the president often, and I can tell you he is not spending one moment underestimating Donald Trump or anybody else. He is fully prepared to go to the American people with his record against that of the Republican Party, irrespective of who their nominee may be. In spite of all these numbers, I'm not in the camp yet that feels that Trump is going to be the nominee. He may be. I'm not there yet.
You say that just because it's still early? Because he is running away with
it's still early, and because there's so much out there for people to be concerned about. We've seen his numbers decline, and I think they're going to begin to tank.
Congressman, let me very quickly ask you, Hunter Biden, as you know, accepted a plea deal for failing to pay his taxes over the course of 2 years. He attended a state dinner last week, a state dinner that was also attended by the Attorney General. Was that a mistake? Should Hunter Biden have decided to stay home and not attend that state dinner?
Absolutely not. I'm a father of those. Of course, I have 3 daughters. But let me tell you something. I'm not going to stop being a father to those 3 daughters.
But was it a problem of optics?
I'm sorry?
Was it an optics problem for him to be there?
Well, it may be an optic problem for some people, but for me, it was not a problem. It was him being a dad just a few days after Father's Day.
Okay. Congressman Jim Clyburn, thank you so much for joining me to discuss all of this. We really appreciate it. Good to see you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.